Hey gang, we are in St. Bernard, Ohio. We're North Cincinnati area here at St. Mary's Cemetery. And we are here today to visit the grave of, well, it was in the circus, the Ringling Brothers circus back in the day, the Fat Lady. I ran across this story watching one of my favorite reruns of the, What's My Line, and this one we've talked about, I've Got a Secret. And I'm going to give you the link in the description box below. I've Got a Secret. You have to watch this part of this episode with Celesta Geyer. That's her name, the Fat Lady. She is a charming, beautiful woman. And it's quite a story, a remarkable story. Of course, the panel could not even come close to guessing what her occupation was, who she was, because, well, I'm going to tell you the story and then you will see why. So let's take a walk to her grave and let's pay tribute to a remarkable woman. And she was so much fun to listen to, and boy, just someone would be amazing to meet while she was alive. She lived to 80 years old, actually. And her name was Dolly Dimples. She was actually born Celesta Herman on July 18th, 1901, near here in Cincinnati area. And she grew up in a German family, German-American family. And let me tell you, we'll just start out by telling you that German families, one trait is they love to eat. Everybody loves to eat, but for German families, and I'm German and Swedish, but half German. And our meals, my family, my parents' meals were a very special thing. Now, in Celesta's family, it was really, really special because they would eat, we all eat, right, 3 meals a day. They would eat 6 meals, 6 celebrations a day. So obviously, as she got older, she got into her teens, she already weighed like 300 pounds. So all the kids were making fun of her. And after a while, she just really, as an excuse, left school. And she's, part of the excuse was, I am going to help the family make money, survive, if you will. But the real reason she probably left school as a young woman in her teens was just the harassment. You can just imagine weighing that much. Her parents actually, as a way to make her feel better, would give her more food. And she would just eat constantly, and she got even bigger. In her 20s, she was nearly 400 pounds. And it's interesting to note that although she was very much overweight, she was as I alluded to, a strikingly beautiful woman. And she had several suitors. And, I can say back in those days, it was more acceptable to be overweight like that. Back in the 1800s, early 1900s, that was kind of a common thing. So she met a man and she got married. His name was Frank Geyer, and that's where she got the Geyer last name. Normal sized guy, nothing too elaborate or unique about him. And they just spent 40 years together, happy years. They did not have any children. But going back late 1920s, Frank had lost his job at Ford Motor Company, and then the Great Depression hit 1929. And it was a very bad time for them. He could not get a job, keep a job, get a job, and they were pretty desperate. So what they did is, and I think it was by chance that they ran into a fat lady from a circus, and she's like, Celesta, you should do this. You can make a lot of money. I mean, people are laughing at us, so why not get paid for it? So Celesta joined the circus, and Frank joined as like a hired hand, some circus, and her name was Dolly Dimples. And they eventually made it to the Ringling Brothers circus, and she was like the top thing. She was the top fat lady, as they called it. What a beautiful statue. We are in the older section of the cemetery here. Well, she was actually billed as the most beautiful fat lady, and she was also a pretty good singer. And she would impersonate people, especially Kate Smith, who I believe she was a singer, I believe. I remember seeing her on What's My Line, but anyway, Dolly had a big draw on those sideshow circuits.
Over there, we're going to start the show this minute. You won't have to wait. Come right on in. All the world. Got a horse with 2 heads. Got a cow with 3 eyes. 3 horns and 3 nostrils. Got a chicken in there with a man's face. Corn with no beak. It's got 2 lips, a nose, and a pair of ears, and it lives. 5 and 6-legged sheep in there. Steer with 5 legs and walks on them all. 3 and 4.
And Ringling Brothers, they were doing pretty good. Now, during this time, Dolly was putting down about 10,000 calories a day. That's enough for about 5 average women of the day. And by the time she was in her 40s, she was weighing a whopping 550 some pounds. Her daily diet typically consisted of 15 pounds of meat. Imagine 15 pounds of meat. How many hamburgers or steaks is that? She had several pounds of potatoes. Remember, this is every day. 4 loaves of bread and a gallon of milk, and about 2 pounds of sugar, basically mostly from the baked goods and pastries. So they toured for about 20 years, and everything was good. They were hanging out in Florida over the winters. Everything was great. They had a home there, and they were away from the crowds. She had special furniture built there. And she was doing psychic readings from her home. But she started slowing down, with all that weight, being in her late 40s, and traveling the circus became more and more of a challenge for Dolly. And then it happened. It was sometime in the 1950s. She had what was an almost fatal heart attack. It was bad. She survived it, but the doctor said, listen, you cannot do this anymore. You have got to stop eating. In fact, you're going to die. So I think it was, he said, 800 calories a day. I mean, you've got to get your proteins or certain things, but she did it the smart way. But what she did is she lost, in a year, over 400 pounds. Like, she went AWOL. She went crazy. And the part that I think I'm most intrigued with is, well, That's why she was on the show, I've Got a Secret. That's why she tricked them, the panel. You have to watch this show.
Thank you.
Now, will you tell our panel, please, what your name is and where you're from?
My name is Celesta Geyer, and I'm from Orlando, Florida.
This is Mrs. Geyer, Geyer, and she is from Orlando, Florida. Now, Mrs. Geyer, if you will whisper your amazing secret to me, we'll show it at the same time to the folks at home. And we'll prove it. Now, to help classify her secret, I will tell you it concerns something that she did. And Faye, welcome home. We're going to throw the burden on you immediately.
You're going to start with me? Miss Geyer, is this something you did recently?
Would you define
No.
that for us?
Recently, last year.
No.
Have you done it many times?
No.
Did it make the papers?
Oh, yes.
Require any physical strength?
It didn't require strength, did it? Actual force? It didn't require, no, muscles it didn't.
No.
And her personality, after they got through the session, she was talking a lot about what happened, and she's just, again, so charming.
You know, you were right when you laughed at my... was some device mentioned in this secret?
No.
No, we have lost the $80 and small wonder, because at one time Mrs. Geyer was a large wonder. Will you tell them what your secret is, and listen carefully?
I weighed 555 pounds, and I lost 433 pounds.
Now, lest you think we are making this whole thing up, I remember seeing Mrs. Geyer when she was in the employ of Ringling Brothers circus, at which time she was the professional fat lady known as Dolly Dimples. And Henry, you're an old circus buff. You might remember Dolly Dimples. You will notice the features are exactly the same, but the body is entirely different. Let's trace this history back a little bit, Mrs. Geyer. Were you extraordinarily large at birth?
No, I weighed 7.5 pounds.
When did you start to gain in an extraordinary fashion?
Oh, around 7, 8 years.
Was it something glandular, perhaps? or-
Positively no. Hand up to the mouth.
You just ate yourself into 555 pounds,
That's
huh?
right.
Let me see now. When did you? When were you married? In 1925, according to my
That's
card.
right.
You weighed how much then?
300.
300 pounds.
He liked them fat.
Perfect. And when she reached 358 pounds, she was offered a job as a sideshow fat lady. A dinner. May I read them up?
And of course, they finish. I had to laugh because they finished the episode, and you know, you get your box of Winston, your carton of Winston cigarettes, which was the big sponsor, right? They get the big carton.
Very shortly. It's been a great encouragement to many people to see you here tonight, I am sure, Mrs. Geyer.
Thank
We want you to have a carton of Winston cigarettes. We want you to have the money that you have won. Our congratulations and good
It's kind of like, oh, you lost 400 pounds. Now go smoke your life away. Die of cancer, right? So I don't think she did, because she lived to be 80. And she wrote a book that was very popular. You know, she was a pretty big hit. A pretty big hit. So we have arrived here at her and Frank's grave. They're right up there, right in the center of the screen here. So let's have a look. Husband and wife, right here. Got to be a little careful with my footing. There's, I almost stepped on that, and I'm betting that's hollow underneath. So let's have a look. Husband, Frank Geyer. So he passed in 1967. Looks like. Yep. Frank F. Geyer. 1892 to 1967. And here is Celesta Geyer. And no, she is not going to be in a casket that's oversized. She looked beautiful throughout until she died. Well, she looked like a regular person. 1901 to 1982. How about that? How about that? Very simple stones here. Nothing fancy for the Geyers, but they're nice stones nonetheless. Nice stones. Well, yeah, she wrote a book that became very popular. Her autobiography, it was called Diet or Die, The Dolly Dimples Weight Reducing Plan, 1968. And a lot of people bought that book, and I'm sure a lot of people lost weight. Her weight loss was also on the Guinness Book of World Records as the greatest amount lost in the shortest amount of time. And she lived a pretty full life, a pretty happy life. You got hats off to Celesta. So Celesta and Frank, hope you're resting in peace. We see here your mortal remains are resting in peace, so that's good. I believe this is a Catholic cemetery, so we're probably going to be good for a while, at least hopefully the next few centuries. But that is the story, guys, and we'll be heading out of here back to Chicago. Rest in peace, Frank and Celesta. Rest in peace.